And there we are.
Hello. Hello, Ursula. How
Hello,
are
Elise.
you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And hello, everybody. This is Wax Hermetic. I'm Elise.
And
That's
I'm
Ursula.
Ursula.
Thank you for joining us here on the Astro Magistus YouTube channel. And welcome back to our Cafe C series and a blessed full moon in Taurus to you.
To you too, Elise. That will be our initial topic we're discussing today. Today's episode is called Illuminated Messages for many reasons. So yeah, we'll be covering this morning's full moon, which is 8:19 a.m. Eastern time. Elise and I are both Eastern time. And we'll look at the chart full moon. And then the part of today's episode, we're going to talk all about Mercury. Because we have some things to clear up. We're in Mercury's defense at all times, especially with our show being on Wednesdays and called Wax Hermetic.
Yes,
so we'll
absolutely.
be doing a deep dive, into that.
And yeah, of course, on Wednesday, the day of Mercury, there's no better day to do it. Honestly, this is when you should be communicating and when you should be getting the downloads as to what Mercury retrograde is and is not, as to clear up some concerns, trepidation, people bypassing both spiritually and practically all of their issues onto Mercury retrogrades, Mercury slowdowns, et cetera, et cetera. So, but let's definitely start with the new moon. Also, since we did start with the ritual last time of opening, I do have a little incense here already on, and I'm just going to hit the bell to ritualize the space in which we are going to be digging deeper into these full moon download and the Mercury retrograde download. So. And we're here.
Love that. Thank you for adding that to our show.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to do that. So let's talk about, let's even just talk about what is the full moon. What is a full moon in terms of the astronomy around it, the actual physical nature of what causes a full moon? It is when we have the sun on opposite the moon, so that we have the full reflection of the sun's light reflected back to it in on the moon, and the moon is fully visible to all of us here on Earth.
Yeah, it's visually stunning as well, because as you'll notice, every time we have a full moon, you can pretty much see it rise completely opposite the sun in the sky. Exactly. So that's a really good, I just love watching the full moon rise in general, especially being near the water. It's one of the most beautiful things to see it rise over the ocean.
It is. It really is. And so in terms of when we're talking about the qualitative aspects or interpretation of what that phenomenon means, we're talking about the conscious self, the conscious energies, the sun energies, getting its own light reflected back by the unconscious, or the more subjective, the more feeling nature, so that we have both this yin and yang energy, the conscious and the unconscious, fully illuminated. We get to see their relationship to each other, and there's that's part of the reason why there's just so much lore and everything like that around the full moon. Like, people are so much more intense, the level of intensity, or maybe I think of like werewolf, the feralness of the human or the earth experience, really coming to a head. And that's really because we have these two polarities pulling on each other so powerfully that it's, sometimes the nighttime is as light or as illuminated as it is during the day. because that is just how powerful this the reflection of the light is off of it. So what does it mean for the moon to be full in the sign of Taurus?
So that would be opposite the sun in Scorpio. So we are definitely pulling in the polarity and the duality, as you said, especially during this time of the year. You know, the sun's going through Scorpio. So in the Northern Hemisphere, at least, we're dealing with, you know, the themes of death and rebirth and transformation, and the leaves are coming down, things are dying, we're preparing for winter. And then on the other side, so Scorpio's, you know, the deep emotions, the underneath, the unseen, and Taurus is all about the physical experience of life. Right. So we have these two kind of coming head to head in that moment, or a few minutes of the full moon's fullness. And the polarity is sort of at odds with each other. So it brings up the themes, and we'll look at the chart in a few minutes, but it brings the you know, scorpionic themes and the Taurian themes kind of in opposition, or, you know, in the duality is highlighted. So this time of the year, I love it because Scorpio season can feel just so emotional, and the Taurus comes in with the moon's fullness and just brings that groundedness that we have with the, you know, the sign in general. I always love to do something pleasure enhancing during a Taurus full moon because it's all about the sweetness of life and slowing down. And of course, it brings up things like security and resources and, you know, the emotional attachment to things. That dynamic is always there, you know, between Scorpio and Taurus, but definitely highlighted under the full moon in Taurus.
Absolutely. So, and the Taurus just, you know, ruling the physical body, the five physical senses, the embodiment, like the physical vessel, the gift, and the inherent value of having a physical body. So, you know, to have as a vehicle for spirit, and to enact will, which is like, you know, the ego will that is seen and represented by the preceding sign of Aries, being given the gift of a physical body, and all the things that go along with that. So Taurus really does rule, you know, value, inherent value, embodied value, and the body itself, the physical world, and our physical experience having inherent value that can actually produce more value. It not just magnetizes to it more value based on its own gravity and its own, you know, the more you embody your physical experience, like you said, nourish, you know, and nurture and even feed the senses, whether it be, you know, with a good meal, you know, a cozy sweater, a massage, like something like that. Maybe, you know, putting a little extra savings in your bank account, and just, you know, just feeling secure in the body and in the physical experience, and like having that slow, deep, embodied gratitude for its inherent value and for the hard work that allows you to build more and to enjoy more of life. Because the flip side of that is well, Scorpio, when life, you know, which is Taurus, has been eliminated or transformed to a non-bodied experience, a non-embodied experience, which is also extremely powerful and intense. But it's, you know, we're getting a chance to do the both and I really like to think of the Taurus full moon as a time where, yes, we take that intensity of, you know, the psychic nature, maybe even the scary nature. You know, it's around Halloween and people are always thinking of that. And yes, it is a time when the veil is thin, but embodying that intensity and that knowingness of what lies on the other side of a physical experience can help you ground into the physical side of that polarity with such power and gratitude.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the other things that I always do with full moons is I kind of play the long game as far as the lunar cycles go. So I'll reflect back to the moon was new in Taurus on April 27th. So this should be the time, like the long-term culmination of things, because full moons are times of release and culmination. new moons are times to set intentions and kind of plant seeds. So back in the spring, what was going on in your life? Did you set any intentions during the Taurus new moon? And now are you seeing them come to fruition at this time 6 months later? That's another way that I work with it. And then if you know your chart, it's also really helpful to see kind of where the seeds were planted and, full circle with the fullness of the moon, but also 6 months later, how are they coming into the material now and manifesting?
So completely. And there's something about, I always say that astrology is just so literal, like it's just so real ass. And there is something about the intensity of the time and about the precision of everything. It's becoming more and more like literal, to the point where people that are not into astrology are starting to be like, this cannot even be. And I'm like, I know, it's crazy, right? So thank you for bringing that up, that long game of the lunar cycles, about, having a full moon in Taurus is not just about the last new moon that we had, as in like two weeks ago, but rather the new moon that we had in Taurus season, when the sun and the moon were conjunct each other to have that Taurus new moon on April 27th of 2025. And boy, am I feeling the culmination, and it's crazy.
Me too.
Like you said, with the and then when you start to incorporate, what that transit, what the lunar cycles do, when you put it to your chart, when you compare it to your chart. It's so funny because it's like, I'm just like experiencing what it is that has come fully to a head, and I'm now able to let go of. And at the same time, I'm like laughing because the full moon is like squaring my natal sun. It's even more, it's within 2 degrees. And it's quincunx my my Sagittarius ascendant, and it's just, and now again, we have Mercury coming to almost a halt to go to retrograde, and all of those things together is making me laugh at like just even how I was just I had to race back to do this after I had already set everything up, because I had other things that required very immediate something, but had stilted conversation, communication, slowdowns, and transportation. I literally had to like duck into a salon like hallway to be able to take a call that I could actually hear, because of how loud the street traffic is and how like interrupted the signal was. So, and then how it's like coming on to how it's affecting how I like to show up, how my my solar like Leo really wants to be able to be like lights, camera, action, and Sagittarius wanting to have all like the notes for like the sometimes soapboxy diatribe of philosophy ready on hand and stuff like that. And it's just like, it's such a literal something of what it is to have a full moon giving you all of the authority to see what has transpired, what is coming to a completion, based on what was going on from April 27th of this year, while also, forcing us to hopefully go towards the current north node in Pisces. Like I could be backtracking, I could be sliding back into the Virgo lunar south node of being like, it's not perfect, like let's delay, or let's do this.
Do you want to bring up the chart while we're talking about this?
Yes, will you
relevant.
Will you please? Yeah, let's bring up the full moon chart for what's happening. Yeah, so
you were just talking about the nodes.
Yeah, I was talking about the nodes, and having this the full moon at 13 degrees 22 minutes of Taurus is, it has a positive relationship with the 15 degree lunar north node and south node. But the north node is where we evolutionarily want to go, right? It's where we want to go towards. And so Pisces is just like, let it flow, like let it ride, you know, like be present in spirit, or, you know, just be there. Pisces has both a be here now and also be nowhere at once kind of in duality to it, right? It's a be everywhere, everything everywhere all at once kind of thing. But we can trust that the full moon is going to allow us to be physically present for what spirit wants to reveal through us and through our efforts and through literally our physical body and the presence of our mind and our senses in one place. So it's always real time, learning, being, allowing, releasing.
Yes.
And so
well,
thanks
and that's
for
one
letting
of
me
the
share.
Yeah, because that you were talking to it perfectly, so I figured let's bring out the chart, because that is one of the things that I wanted to point out. We don't always have a lunation, whether it's a new moon or a full moon, interacting so beautifully with its own nodes. So we
Right.
have this awesome mystic rectangle shape going on with the full moon. I mean, it'll break free. The moon will break free of that, and we won't have that once it moves past 15 degrees, 16 degrees of Taurus. But we have this beautiful trine from the full moon to the south node of the moon. So like releasing the need to be perfect, just like you said.
Yeah.
Which is a very good description of the south node in Virgo. And then we have the south node sextile to the sun at this time, and the sun trining the north node, and then the sextile between the full moon and the north node of the moon. So it's just that mystic rectangle part of it, especially during Scorpio season, I feel like this moon is just so extrasensory in so many ways.
Oh, yeah.
Not just the physical senses, like you said when you were talking about it before. So we don't always have this setup, it just happens to be this full moon in particular is just beautiful for the whole sensory experience, and just really being in the moment with it, moment to moment, like you were saying, and just sort of going with the flow of it, bringing in that Pisces piece. And we also have the water trine still working with us in the sky. That'll shift throughout the month as far as the planets completing it. But just the fact that the water is still so much there, and earth and water work so well together, they create mud. They're both the feminine. So just kind of being in this in-between space, but also kind of just like letting your feet sink into the mud, quite literally, is a really good way to look at the energy that we have going on.
That's an awesome way to look at the energy. And again, like you said, not every full moon or new moon, and not every lunation has this kind of really positive or supportive setup for us. But in the sense that this one does, it doesn't mean that it's how this lunation is affects your own chart. Won't have its hiccups, won't have its rough interfaces, but there is a trust in knowing that that's what you personally need to learn and address and kind of move through with grace, compassion, maybe paying attention, or of course getting a reading with an astrologer to know what that could kind of look like. Some people are more into the predictive stuff, and some people are, like I'm a weirdo, but I'm kind of someone who's like more making sense of what happened as opposed to really concerned about what will happen. Of course, like if it's major life decisions or something like that, I will, of course, address the stars. But I really love because sometimes you just get broadsided, but then you're like, but collectively, the whole layout, the energies as a whole is literally a mystic triangle. It's literally the sun and the moon supporting our evolutionary path as a collective. And that's really inspiring and inspired and really comforting to me. And comfort is very important to a Taurus moon, which we're under currently.
And then just having the ruler Venus still in Libra, that's another very supportive energy that we have going. I mean, Venus will square off with Pluto very soon, so that's a whole other vibe that we're going into. But enjoy the sweetness of today, especially, if you can watch the moonrise tonight, late this afternoon at this point. Just having that visual connection is always really nice too. And Venus is still technically visible in the morning sky. So just that, I always love having that visual connection with the planet, with the lunation, to just sort of embody the energy even more, just sort of like, be present with it.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. Yesterday, when I saw the sun or the moon rise over the horizon, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go and get a picture. And then it took me like 11 minutes to like get my phone and blah, blah, blah. And I was trying to like go out onto a fire escape to get a really nice, and the moon had just moved just that much further above the horizon. So it wasn't this, like what looked like a photo lens, kind of shot. Instead, it was kind of like a little more distant. And I was like, the world, the earth keeps moving, everything keeps moving, the moon keeps moving. So yeah, I do really think that kind of I like to sunbathe or to moonbathe. Well, I like to sunbathe also, but I like to moonbathe, and I really suggest that people do that. It's actually a really good time to do that, because some people are like, you can't actually bathe under the moon, can you? And I'm like, well, why don't you take your mortal coil known as your physical body, which is a very Taurian experience. It's a gift of Taurus, of the earthen iteration of Venus by way of the earth, that is giving us, let your body experience it with the senses.
Yeah,
and
just try.
You tell us if you feel a little moon burned or something like that, Don't tell like our word for it. You have a body and a physical experience for you to kind of F around and find out,
Yeah.
Taking that information in is it's essential. And it's so weird how it is so the exact opposite, the exact inverse of that Scorpio full moon that we experience, in May or during like the Taurus season, where it's almost like the conscious focus of the land, of the collective, is so on the abundance of, the springtime coming back, and, just like that different kind of energy. And then, but the inner knowingness, that subconscious draw, is like, it's Scorpio. And it also gives me, it really gives me like spring cleaning. Like I'm going to eliminate everything that is keeping this new growth abundance. It's like a pruning almost kind of energy, where this one is like, especially here in the Northern Hemisphere, and on, where we are on the East Coast, it's like, no, nature is pruning itself, to like go back into the ground on its, return back into the ground cycle. And yet we get to be grounded in this like inherent abundant energy of our physical selves. So it's just really rad. I just love it.
And it's just like one more layer before we segue. The moon is said to be exalted in Taurus. So we have that other beneficial energy that's kind of pulling into the energetics of today and this full moon also, which is nice.
Exactly. The moon is exalted in Taurus. And I like to think of that. It's because, the moon, which is constantly moving, constantly fluctuating. This is where we get the word lunatic or lunar tick, to mean that someone is erratic or changeable like the moon. But in Taurus, it's like, but I got you. Like in Taurus, it is staid. It is hard to unseat emotionally. And it's fixed in its ways, but it's still, because it rules the senses, that there is still a very tangible interface between the emotions and the physical body, that it's also known as it's a staid moon, but it's also has the large capacity to be a very sensuous moon, and really embody emotions in a way that it's really powerful, impactful, and also hard to get over on a Taurus moon. So I think that's also what's helping with the kind of feeling of I don't know how everyone feels. I'm a Cancer moon, so obviously my moon vibes very well with Taurus, but the feeling of security that I get to feel while still having that emotional resonance, it makes me feel very calm, and that lends to this feeling of productivity that we're having right now, as well as this kind of almost what feels like a bird's eye view on what has transpired since that lunar, the lunation cycle of Taurus started on April 27th of this year, or this year. And what has come to culmination kind of gives us like a nice, solid, like platform, like an emotionally solid platform from which to do our work from, where we are now.
Yeah. So stay grounded, enjoy something beautiful today, do something pleasurable, and just enjoy the sweetness.
Stay grounded. I also like humming, singing, some stuff, some kind of, whether you meditate or you don't meditate, I always like to do like slow walking meditation. Whenever I have, my Taurus people, that I'm just like, you can actually, like, something that's like slow and grounding, like walking barefoot in grass while thinking, is a perfectly good meditation or use of the time. I don't know. I just heard like new socks, the comfort, that like luxurious feeling of new socks is so amazing. So yeah,
love that.
I thank you. I don't know. I have had like breakthroughs, I would say, with new sock experiences. But any case, so everyone enjoy the full moon. And I personally think that utilizing the energy to get things done in a nice, like, this has tangible, factual value to it. Like, this has value to it. Maybe it can even bring like fairness, because like we said, that moon in Taurus is dispositing Libra, or the Venus in Libra. So they have this natural connection of it being in its domicile. We're having a connection between the emotional mind and body and the values, like, of what's going on right now on an intellectual, ideological level. I think it's really interesting. I don't know if you caught any of Trisha and Jay's Cafe C yesterday, but they were talking about election. They were doing a chart. They were doing the chart of the day during, an election day, and I think it's interesting because I have seen a lot of people, regardless of what they expected or anticipated here in New York, after we just had this big mayoral election. It just feels like people have some kind of both restored hope, and also it, like, I don't know, like, people are feeling the energy feels like people feel like a sense of security restored in some capacity. And you can feel it in the air. I feel like people have a little bit more pep in their step because they're feeling supported from the inside out. And I think that's a really interesting something with having this, Taurus full moon, kind of culminating there, and then also dispositing Libra or dispositing Venus and its domicile, and it's air, it's ideological domicile.
That's lovely.
So do we want to get on to, I don't know if we have any questions from the audience.
No comments.
No comments. So
we can segue into Mercury. Speaking of ideals and the mind and that kind of thing.
Speaking of the mind, but it's also interesting. Actually, I'd like to segue with the fact that while Mercury, the planet Mercury, does rule the mind, the intellect, communication, as well as things that support communication, the technology, and also the movement of information, short distance, back and forth, between two mouths, between two, cities, very Mercury, Gemini, third house kind of things, where it's not, it's back and forth, it's objective, like, information. So Mercury as a planet that rules communication and the mind and how we think and commute. But also, when we think of the moon, when we talk about the collective, and we're doing transits, that the moon also rules the collective mind.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
that is part of the reason why, say, when we have the moon go void of course, so it has exited one mindset, collective mindset, but it hasn't quite entered, or it hasn't been acted upon so that it's fully engaged in the next sign, that there's kind of this void. I describe it as like, it's, your phone is having an iOS update. The collective is having a collective mind, emotional mind update. So it's offline. Don't make any, it's not a great time to make anything that requires an executive decision, or for you to really know how you feel about something in order to know how you think about something so that you can go ahead and execute on something. You want to make sure that all those things, all those executive decisions, X, Y, and Z, have been made prior to that moment or after we have passed the void space, because just like your phone is basically bricked when your iOS is updating, same so with a collective mind during a void of course. So there is a little bit of, even though we don't have the moon currently in a sign that is ruled by Mercury, there is a very, very strong connection between the mind and our communication and our feelings. I don't know. I think I remember it being that you feel something. It starts with like a feeling, and then you have a thought, and then you have like an action. People think that things originate in their mind, but really you have an emotional need, which is very moon oriented, which then like feeds the mind. So I just think that is an interesting and an important something for our audience to know about, the inherent connection between how we feel and how we think, or what we say and what we communicate, and how that kind of breaks down when we talk about astrology.
Thank you for bringing that up, Elise. And that'll be especially relevant for the next full moon, which will be in Gemini.
Right.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy. It's always it's always a riot. And then also with something that we'll be talking about with the Mercury retrograde going between the sign of Sagittarius, which is opposite of Gemini. Gemini's opposite sign, and back into Scorpio, and what that might even mean for the upcoming new moon, or full moon next month. It's next month,
yeah.
Right? It's next month.
Yeah, I think it's December 5th.
Oh, that's right. It is December 5th. Okay.
So we'll be just coming off the Mercury retrograde. So we'll break this down for everybody as far as, what we're trying to shine the light on, I guess you could say, in with our illuminated messages theme for today, as far as debunking some things and kind of flipping the script on Mercury retrogrades in general. And then we'll actually look at the charts, because with Mercury, you can break things down pretty much into threes at all times. Threes and nines are Mercury's jam. So the Mercury retrograde has three parts: the beginning, the middle, and the end. They happen for about 3 weeks, roughly every 3 months, and there's roughly 3 to 4 every year. So Hermes being the thrice great, we can analyze things in those cycles. And I think it's important to maybe just first you've already touched on a lot of the mercurial themes that we experience, like communication and travel and that kind of thing. So what are some things for people watching now or in the future that you want to flip the script on, as far as blaming Mercury for things and the bad rap?
Script on. Well, for one, it's to me, I mean, I always end up going back to like the origins of things. So and I always think of what it actually means to have Mercury. Before I think about Mercury going retrograde, I think of when you have the conjunction, when you have like, the sun and Mercury conjunction. And if, this sun that is powering is powering consciousness. And then Mercury, which is the messenger of consciousness.
Yep.
When Mercury is going far ahead of its own consciousness. It's literally starts to enter a zone where the light of the sun is no longer illuminating its path. But Mercury is going to keep going because Mercury likes to move. Okay, we're talking about the messenger god. We're talking about Hermes with his, winged sandals and all that noise. So we're talking about our minds, our communication, our transportation, our, it can even be, our our daily commutes and the conversations and ideas that are bounced around between those things. Even our communication with siblings and stuff like that, and people that are just in your daily,
friends.
Sphere, right? Friends, exactly. And also education. We think of like early education, but it's also like how you learn, Mercury, all these things. So, and when we're talking about it on a collective level, it's like what we're thinking about, what we're talking about, how we communicate it, and to whom we communicate it to, daily or whatever. Obviously, if you have things a little different on your chart, it still applies, but it will be more focused in, whatever house, etc. that you have. But anyway, the whole point of the point of Mercury having to come back, having to stop and be like, I cannot go any further. I've been traversing in the dark, unilluminated by consciousness. I have gathered facts. I have gathered facts and experiences. I've met people, but I need to backtrack. I need to slow down, hit a point to acknowledge that I cannot, in good conscience, and also with consciousness, I cannot go any further. I have to retrace my steps. And in doing so, you are likely to find that there are many things that you have missed. There are probably I's that have not been dotted and there's T's that have not been crossed. Someone might look different, someone or something or an idea, a concept, a contract, all of these things might look different. And so there is such a blessing in going backwards, that Mercury is going backwards to retrace its steps, because you are given the opportunity to see things in a different light.
I love that analogy and explanation so much. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Because it addresses so many other things that we don't even have to point out. So, I mean, but yeah, I mean, just the whole idea of the gift. So like that is the gift.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
That is the gift. It is the gift. And it's funny because yes, there are some simple tenets that we kind of live by, and it's definitely advised by as astrologers when we're doing readings and talking to people that, don't make the travel plans during Mercury retrograde, don't sign the contract during. I tried to do it ahead of time, but I also will be like, oh, if Mercury's going to be retrograde when I'm traveling, then again, I don't have, so it also works differently when people have a natal Mercury retrograde. It's one of the most, because of how close Mercury is to the earth and also to the sun, it is kind of like the litmus test of, how exacting and how immediate the influence of these things are on our life experience, or reflective. I don't necessarily think that the movement and the whatever of the stars, the celestial bodies, is causal, but it's certainly reflective. And so, if a society at large, and now people that constantly want to pass the buck onto Mercury or blame things on Mercury retrograde, yes, it could be doing a lot of things to slow down what we're hoping to be straightforward, linear, and continuously moving forward, perpetual motion. But the gift of it is, man, if you utilize that time to revise, review, reorganize, reconsider, reassess, all the re's,
Mm-hmm.
things, reconnect, revitalize, revitalizing.
Rest.
Yeah, rest. Oh, that's interesting. Yes, rest. Just getting that, it's getting a second chance that's built in. And when you become aware of when they're going to happen, I don't mind when people are like, oh, it's Mercury retrograde, or, oh, Mercury's slowing down, or, oh, whatever. But honestly, if you plan the work and work the plan, you can get a lot done. You won't feel broadsided by Mercury retrograde and not. So, and sometimes it's also,
okay.
Oh, I was just saying, and also, this is a personal, like, I don't know if a personal thing or not, but the electronics and like car repair aspect of it, seeing that Mercury and Gemini, or the third house, very third, is has to do with all those things. I think it's funny that if you don't plan the work or to do those things or have like backed up something, that's something that Mercury retrograde can really, really put into place. But it's also not the best idea, like I just remember having just my one work computer and everything that I was completely dependent on, and I had meant to back up a bunch of stuff, and then I was forced to do the backup during the retrograde, and it just, I don't know, it's situational. You might want to like start these things beforehand and not, but what were you saying about
well, I was going to say, I mean, remember, Mercury is the trickster.
Yeah.
So it is important to have a sense of humor going into these times, and also if you are dealing with something like needing to get work done or relying on technology that's glitching out or not working, what's the lesson? Hey, take the power in the pause, put the stuff away, and go back to it if you can.
Right. Yeah.
Don't try and force things. Don't try and force things during a retrograde period, because the whole point is to pause and to slow down. So I don't want that message is super important. Just so people get so frustrated and angry when things don't work, and it's like, well, like you said, make the plan and work with the plan. Like, just expect stuff like that to happen. It's right. Probably going to happen. Whether it's like I had like all my small appliances break down, I think last year during one of the retrogrades. So it's like, okay, that sucks. Let's go out for coffee instead and enjoy the experience, and we'll replace the coffee maker and we'll just have some fun in the meantime. Yeah. So just refreshing your perspective on things that are not working the way that they usually do is also one of the gifts. Even though it can be very frustrating, I understand. I've had my own experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Gemini and the Mercury, like you're saying, is a trickster, and Gemini being the air, the most, the air iteration, the intellectual, air element iteration of Mercury, or as opposed to Virgo, which is also ruled by Mercury, and in its earthen iteration. Gemini gives you the opportunity and sometimes the frustrating experience that forces you into seeing something or having to experience or acknowledge an alternative. So like, let's say your car craps out and now you're forced to bike. Now you're forced to bike to work. It also is going to change who it is that you see or don't see on your commute, which is also a Mercury, Gemini, a kind of thing. And what kind of conversations you are now available to have, because you're not in your usual bubble of your own personal vehicle. So it's forcing things that, like you said, as long as you can be open to it, not let the frustration keep you in a hole and keep you very blocked off from this wonderful opportunity to experience and observe and communicate from the other side of what usually happens. Then, there's such amazing stuff in that. Maybe by the end of the Mercury retrograde, you're like, I'm actually going to bike to work now. I have a new friend. I'm in a bike club, actually, like, I finally got a chance to go and try that new spot, or, you know, I found out that they finished that bike trail or something like that goes by the water. And, you know, this is because it was outside of your scope before, and we just wanted our physical bodies and the information to get from point A to point B so quickly and efficiently. Which, let's be honest, that's more of like it's more of a Virgo thing, you know. It's like the efficiency will happen after it's, you know, it's gone through a few more processes. But, you know, that plane, you know, I'm seeing it from both sides and being able to jump around. It gives me, and I can't remember if it's giving me in a way the Hangman, even though I don't think Hangman is in the tarot. I don't think it's ruled by I don't think it rules Gemini, but to me, it gives Gemini in the sense that I'm forced to see things from the other perspective, from the upside down. And some people think of the card as Hangman, and they're like, wow, that would be awful to be hanging upside down, suspended by 1 foot from a tree. That sounds like a real drag and really antithetical to progress. Well, the whole point is the progress is in willingly staying in a state of suspension so that you can observe things in this inverted fashion and just just let it flow over you, you know, flow through you.
So Elise, time has flown by today.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy.
We were going to share some charts. Do you want to
share the charts and share them in whichever order.
In order.
Or in order, or I'm trusting you at how you feel so impelled. Yes, we do have a question actually, which is, how do you see the connection between tarot and astrology? Well, there is a lot of connection between them. I mean, we can start with the archetypal, you know, nature of consciousness and kind of like this, how it is cumulative, you know, and that is that we utilize when we talk about astrology, and then those things are represented in the cards.
This could be a whole topic in and of itself.
Yeah, we could thank you for that. We'll write down the connection between tarot and astrology, because I do think it is worth its own episode. So yeah, I mean, the same way that, you know, I mean, there is a lot. The numbers are essentially different. I mean, because they're not based necessarily on the same astrological, the same numerological field. You know, you have plenty of different like kinds of numerology in the world, Chaldean, Pythagorean, all this kind of stuff. But the most important thing is, I think the easiest way to think of it is, especially when you use the major arcana, then it literally goes by order of how consciousness or life, of how something is revealed to you, from starting at 0 with, you know, starting at Aries, starting at the equinox, starting at, you know, when we just kind of come fully formed and we're ready. We have no expectations that we're consciously aware of. We're just, you know, on our journey. That's very, you know, Aries start. I always say that Aries is, I personally think especially Aries moons, but they're kind of like the F around and find out sign, because they go from impulse to action without any kind of qualms about what might happen. When your moon, your emotional memory is brand new. It doesn't remember that fire. It doesn't know that fire is hot, or, you know, you have to look both ways before you cross the road, or, you know, you have an impulse to eat a burger and maybe the person that you're standing next to is a vegetarian. You just already walked into Five Guys or whatever, you know, like that is so, you know, that's like Aries. And then you move into like the Taurus energy. And so there's a course, there is like a one-to-one
There's
course.
So many correspondences. Yeah. I don't want this to pull us off today. I want to finish, like, let's get to the Mercury retrograde cycle.
Yeah, let's go to the Mercury cycle. Yeah, okay.
So, but yes, to answer this, just yes or no, like, yes, an upside down card is definitely like a retrograde. The energy is internalized. That's the way that I read it with Oracle as well. So
yes, it
thank you for the topic for another time.
Yes, thank you for the topic for another time. Yes, we will do that for another time. Yeah. So thank you.
Yes. Okay. So this Mercury retrograde that we have upcoming. So just like you said, the cycle begins. This is the camp that I'm in. The cycle begins at the Cazimi when Mercury is conjunct the Sun between the Earth during the retrograde.
Right.
So we are now burning off the cycle that began back in July in Leo. So that was fully in a fire sign, the last one. So now you'll probably notice maturation of themes or ideas that started during that point in time in your life, depending also on the house that it was in or the part of your chart. Those themes are probably coming to some kind of culmination. And now the retrograde will begin on the 9th. So we're just a few days out at this point. At 6 degrees of Sagittarius. One thing to keep in mind with this retrograde is pretty much the entire time it's going to be opposite Uranus. So there's going to be a bit more. This one's going to be a bit extra. It's starting in a sign that Mercury is not comfortable in. It's in Sagittarius. So it's playing by Jupiter's rules rather than its own. So we have that layer also. So I'm describing this one as it's going to be extra for a lot of reasons, mostly because pretty much the entire time it's going to be opposed the planet of surprises and revolution. And this has its own thing going on, going back into Taurus a couple days before the retrograde starts. Also, Mercury and Mars are still traveling together. As the retrograde continues on, they will finally separate. They've been traveling together for a while. So there's like a brutal honesty or just like upfront nature of this whole retrograde as it's starting very close to Mars in Sagittarius.
Oh yeah. Do you think that will have any effect on I do agree that, you know, Mars and Mercury having been together for so long and traveling together that our words have been a little spicier or a little more like barbed, you know? But I also think that people are also like swifter or more their actions are matching their words are matching their actions. And something that I think is a major theme of this Mercury retrograde that we will be starting on the 9th here is a reflection of where that was good or like usable and where it wasn't and where it isn't, you know? You know, you might need to make some apologies, or maybe you're like, this is actually much more in line. This is actually much more like practical, much more efficient, much more like this is actually a process that Mars, Mercury energy having actions and words in alignment.
Mm-hmm. That's authenticity.
Is authenticity. And it's real authenticity. And it's something that so many of us don't realize that we're not doing, or because we're kind of expected to, you know, you can do one thing and say something else. No, that's actually a lack of character. In fact, you know, people talk about the narcissistic collapse. One of the best ways to know whether someone actually has your interest in mind, you know, or are you pouring into a leaky bucket, you know, whether it's at your job or it's in a relationship or it's in how your even society or your neighborhood or something like that is addressing something are the actions matching the words or the words matching the actions. And because we've had Mars and Mercury traveling with each other all this time, but now we're going to see the breakaway with Mercury going backwards. And it's going to be going backwards from where we have the sign of Sagittarius, where we have our ideals, the we believes, you know, this is how we get the tenets of the land that become law. We collectively come together with the information and we decide on what is important enough that we're basing our entire like civilization or society or, you know, or the laws, the religious tenets, the, you know, philosophies, the education, the higher education. And we're going backwards into Scorpio, which is like, yo. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so funny with Scorpio being, you know, co-ruled or traditionally ruled by Mars. Mm-hmm. But now in modern, you know, times, modern astrology, it being ruled by Pluto, which is like, and so the separation of that consciousness is, you know, the ego will being ruled by Mars and the soul's will being ruled by Pluto. It's like Mercury again with its very classy, but very tricky, purposeful, kind of frustrating movement backwards that's throwing a wrench in the works. But it's like, no, are you attaching the tenets of the land? Are you attaching not just your communication, but how they and your thoughts and your intellect with how you devise and how you distribute and how you communicate and who has a say in the we believes of Sagittarius? Are you connecting it to soul's will? Are you connecting? Is it connected to the power of the people? Is it connected to the power that is truly, indisputable? And or are we going back to look over the fact that something nefarious or some hidden aspect of the communication and thought process and the whys behind or how things were done while Mars and Mercury were going through Scorpio together?
I think you pretty much just answered that question.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's multi-layered as all things are. It's super,
yes.
It's multi-layered.
Right. Let's go to that moment that so the Cazimi moment that you were touching on. Mercury will slide back into Scorpio, as Elise just described. And this, the whole emotional part of it is going to really come into play when we're back in the Scorpio territory. So just like you said, and this is happening just a few hours after the Scorpio new moon. So I'm kind of calling this like a new moon seance because Mercury is right there too. And the new cycle begins very close to the new moon in Scorpio. So this Cazimi moment is the middle of the retrograde that will be on the 20th, same day as the Scorpio new moon. So I think that this is a really important day to check in with your intuition, with your emotions, and to see if your beliefs are in emotional alignment, or if you've been manipulated in some way, if your emotions have been manipulated to lead you to thinking something different than what you actually think and feel, like in your true self. That ties in as things start with Jupiter being in Cancer and the moon cozying up, like everything that you just said. Now we're back in the water element, also, like you just said. So this midpoint of the cycle, I think, is super important to do that check-in, maybe do a little bit more meditating, relying on feeling rather than thought at this point in time. And just like you said, like Mercury and Scorpio is definitely shining the light and the perspective on hidden things.
Right. I totally agree. And also I think that with Scorpio, Mercury can also have us paranoid, brooding over, something. And so something that you may have been paranoid about or really intensely, just like overly fixated on, obsessing over, even to the point of causing a catastrophe for yourself, or, an inability to move forward, or like maybe, a situation like blowing up. It's like, was that really worth it? Or maybe it's like, actually, those are my spidey senses that were telling me something that I couldn't prove, I couldn't see, but I could feel it, like an inner knowing. And having it, having all of this Scorpio, this whole situation on November 20th is, I think a lot of things will be revealed from like deep in the just from the deep. I think it goes along
Uranus.
Yeah, it goes along with the water trine that we've been in. It goes along with Jupiter in Cancer, and just something that is an overall theme is, how long are we going to gaslight ourselves before we just accept that our inner knowingness, our emotional impulse, our intuition is a gift and not something that's to be discounted, no matter how many and how many people, institutions, thought processes, prescribed methods have told you, no, those are just ignore that. Just ignore it.
Yeah.
Don't ignore it.
Trust your gut. Yeah. Trust your gut and really just sit with your feelings.
Yeah. It's spirit. It's spirit talking to you. It's spirit talking to you about what's real, what isn't real. just because other people can't see it, that's part of for you to intuit and then communicate and, and know that you've done your piece about like expressing your lowercase t truth into the pot so it can be accounted for or denied. And then you know who your friends are, who's open, who's not, who swears they know better. And then you can poke around and see what the why is behind it, especially while Scorpio is Mercury still in Scorpio, because the whys that are like, kind of gotten from Scorpio, Mercury, especially after it's gone back, it's already gone through its retrograde. It's before it goes back out and traverses the exact same land, the same information, but from another perspective now with a deeper appreciation and understanding of what's real and what isn't. The intensity is real. And so should be your knowingness of this is indisputable,
Yes. And this will be where the new cycle begins. So this is something new that's going to come into your awareness or to the collective awareness that will set the tone and carry forward for the whole next cycle.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the final piece. So the third, thrice great, as we said. The third piece is when the retrograde ends, which is on the 29th of November. So we'll be in Sagittarius season at that point, but we still have the grand water trine with us. The retrograde will end, and then, as Elise was saying, we'll have the post-retrograde shadow period, which is the integration time with the new perspective.
Right.
Yeah. So pretty much all of November is Mercury retrograde.
Yeah. Oh, that's
still
so wild.
A wider orb, but now we have Venus opposite Uranus. So there's like a whole lot going on in the later degrees of Scorpio as planets move through that are definitely in communication with the great shaker.
the great shaker. I could have sworn I felt an earthquake last night. I don't know if anyone else felt that. I haven't seen anything on the news. Was there an earthquake?
I don't know, but this is moving back Friday, so that's potentially possible, I think.
I felt an earthquake, and then I did see that there was something about it was an earthquake like in the Philippines or something like that. So I haven't heard of anything registering here in the mid-Atlantic, or north eastern part of the United States. But I'm telling you, I felt an earthquake. And so I don't know what that is, but that's what I thought of when you talked about the shaker. Can we actually just go back real quick? I really love how you hit the midpoint, where I think it's really important. We use midpoints all the time in astrology, but for to unpack the significance of what a Mercury retrograde is and is not. Thank you so much for generating a chart that is hitting the midpoint, and the fact that this midpoint of the actual of Mercury's actual retrograde is also with a new moon. Is like, that should tell us so much about what we know and what we kind of already have known. You know what I'm saying? Because like what we already have known, whether or not we were willing to accept it as the truth, and it may have been just an inkling, a hunch, maybe even a weird paranoid thought that we're now keeping our mouths shut. Or a dream. Yeah, or a dream. Oh, so much is revealed in dreams. And yeah, I mean, Scorpio just has to do with power, but I love the fact that, this midpoint of the Mercury retrograde experience, where it travels, trajectory in this is right with the new moon, but it's like just behind the new moon. I guess the new moon will have already happened, but there's something, I don't know, and the fact that Lilith is there too. It's just,
yeah. The moon is new that day at 1:47 a.m. So it's not even 3 hours after.
Okay. So yeah, that is absolutely wild.
And the fact that the entire time the traditional ruler of Scorpio is in Sagittarius throughout the entire Mercury retrograde.
Wow.
So we got Mars, in this spirited, action-oriented, philosophizing mode in charge of this whole time period.
Right. So I almost just got like this overall, people that are bugging out about Mercury being retrograde, or it just being a phenomenon that is just overall, for the birds, or it's a not, it's a negative, that it's detracting, if anything, it's, to me, especially with how deep this Mercury retrograde in this midway point with the new moon in Scorpio, of how deeply intense the insights that come from a place that you cannot deny. It completely controls your entire being from outside of a place that is detectable from the five senses. Because again, we're talking about the opposite sign from Taurus, which is the five senses. So we're literally talking about your spidey senses. We're talking about all the other senses with Scorpio, and that what it is that you have seen and felt and that you will pass back through mentally, the collective mind will readdress, reassess, revise, will actually be in the dark of the new moon, which is the light of the new consciousness. It's so juicy. It's so juicy. So crazy. So, oh yeah, if you do not have a dream journal, if you are not getting up and documenting your dreams 100%, and don't even be mad at it, like maybe you have someone that, you talk to, or like text or something like that. If you just get up and text them and then just copy that and plug it into, your memo app or a journal app or something like that, so that you can at least have what it happened, because sometimes I'm like, I don't want to talk to my journal. I want to communicate this to another person. So I will start with texting it at length and in detail while it's fresh in my mind. And I'm like, I know they'll be up, or, and then I'll actually go back and put the date that it happened and all that kind of stuff, so that I have it available. But all the information is coming from the deep, and it's coming from the dark, and it's coming from a place that you, for most of us, have been trained to completely ignore.
Back to that resurrection of the temple.
And back to the resurrection of the temple is, baby, if you don't start using that as your energetic tools to build, that you're already missing, like, you've already missed the boat in a way. I think a lot more people, as they also start to experience things like, people getting into transcendental meditation and like understanding that it starts in the energetic world first, similar to how people want to say it starts with a thought, and then it's like, because you feel emotional about it, and then it happens. No, it starts with something that's much more. It starts with the emotion. It starts with the energy motion giving you feedback that is identifying a need for something, something that is impelled. And then you start, building, then you have a thought about it, and then you have moving forward. So get the dream journal going. Love the fact that you have the opportunity thrice a year, to actually have that revision. And then, know that this one in particular, those insights that are going to be coming back, coming to us in case we miss them the first few times, the first time around, will actually be right on time and right in line with a Scorpio new moon here on November 20th.
Yeah. So to go deeper and learn more, book a reading.
Yes, and go deeper and learn more.
Where the retrograde's happening in your chart. So
yeah. Absolutely. We absolutely can. And yes, please check us out at astromagistus.com. Please make sure to follow Astro Magistus on YouTube, so that you can stay notified of when we have new videos. And please make sure that you like, share, and comment on this video. That is how we know what you are interested in, that if there's something that you would like to see more of in Cafe C and here on Wax Hermetic. And of course, if you have questions that you would like to be addressed in future episodes. So we thank you so much. And I'm going to end with a little bell ring right here. I love this bell. Thank you so much for sharing this ritual space of unpacking all that is. And again, I am Elise Anamkara, and this is Ursula.
Yep. Ursula Duffy. And then next week we'll be back with a 2-part series. Part 1, We Heart Pluto. So way more on the Scorpionic themes.
Yes, absolutely. Way more on the Scorpionic themes. And maybe I will, based on the question that was asked from our audience in this particular episode, maybe I will pull out the cards, some cards that do correspond with big Pluto energy, big
thinking that too.
Scorpio energy.
Yep.
We are thinking of the Tower and of course the Death card. So we'll start there. I mean, we'll make sure to incorporate that too. So thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you next time.